started. Let's give it one more minute. There's a story. Yes, it is good. It's a funny story. It's got to expense. Exactly. We're to defend himself.
Riley being filmed on the photo. So you can say, I didn't hear it. And it shows taste.
I'll say that.
We had a little bit.
No, I got it. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jose Villarrubia, and welcoming you to the Spotlight on Kevin Nowlan panel this afternoon. It's my great pleasure to do this. I have admired Kevin's work since I discovered, I think probably in the Comics Journal, and Amazing Heroes, so early on. And he's one of my art heroes. He knows it. Yeah. And I'm really excited to do this because I feel that it's going to be a little bit different than other panels, and that we're all going to learn something from the conversation. I feel that also it's best if you keep your questions until we're done. I won't talk very long, I promise. And so we're going to talk for about 25 minutes, something like that. Then we'll have 15-20 minutes of questions, and then if you have any other burning question that we don't have time to cover, then you can go to Kevin's table and ask him personally. So without further ado, I'd like us to welcome Kevin Nowlan. So I was talking to Kevin just before now, and we were talking about how I made a sort of loop of work by Kevin from all different eras, some old, some new, some well-known, some more obscure. And just looking at the pieces, we were already having conversations about just different aspects of the pieces. That's the tone that I would like to have in our conversation. So if you want to read everything about Kevin, buy this book. It's great. It has tons of information, tons of art. It's terrific. And it's one of my favorite documents on any living comic artist because so much of the information is nowhere else to be found. So check it out. You can check it out here, and that's very easy to get online, some of the retailers. So, Kevin, I wanted to talk to you first about the different aspects of your career in comics, which are unique to anyone I know. And the fact that you have done very successfully inking, penciling, digital coloring, painting, design work, logos, and lettering. Am I forgetting something?
No, that covers it. That's enough.
And I think that it's a pleasure to see when you do the whole job in your pages, because even just the very, very special kind of lettering that you do when you do word balloons is something that in Europe there is a tradition of that, but in the US it's been always left to specialists.
Right.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a little bit about lettering and how you feel about lettering and logo design.
Cool.
And how did that come about? And what do you feel, what are your current feelings about it? Since you don't do this all the time now.
Okay. I actually did some hand lettering for the first time recently. Not for the first time. I had done hand lettering for many years, and I did some recently. Joe Quesada was putting together a page, his page for the Marvel 1000 book that just came out, Daredevil page, and Joe wanted the original art to have balloons on it, lettering, like old-time comic art used to before digital lettering came in. So he asked me if I'd be willing to. He wanted me to ink the page and to do the hand lettering. miss that. It's nice to see what it's going to look like before it's printed. You know, most of the time, you don't, unless you're doing the digital lettering yourself, you're not going to know what's going to be covered up and how the design's going to be affected by it. So when I can, and it's more and more rare these days, I like to do my own lettering, and ideally I work out the balloons and the breaks and the lines when I'm doing the layouts. If it's a full script, I'll lay out the balloons first. Then I know exactly, especially like an Alan Moore script, you want to know how much space is left for the artwork. Working the other way, never knowing exactly how much of your drawings will be covered up by balloons seems backwards to me, but I got started doing hand lettering because I was working on samples before I started working in comics, and I wanted them to look professional. I didn't want my amateur, uneven hand lettering to make the rest of the art look bad. So I really worked hard at becoming a better letterer, and occasionally got opportunities after that to do my own lettering, but not enough, especially these days.
I think the first thing I saw lettered by you that really impressed me, and then I noticed the lettering, and I looked at the credit, and it was you, was Moonshadow from Epic.
Right.
And you used, not only you lettered by hand, but you created a font for it that was very unique at the time.
I didn't create it, I stole it from another letter. It was based on something I'd seen Gaspar Saladino do, and to me he's the father, he's the god of hand letters as far as I'm concerned. Did so many of the logos that we all grew up with, you know, from Swamp Thing. It's an endless list. All the best logos, all the best title pages in the 70s at Marvel were done by him. And an amazing hand letter. But I stole that font from him, and then the irony was one issue, he lettered himself. So he was sort of imitating my imitation of his style. And it was funny because I looked at him, he didn't quite get it right. But it was fascinating to see his take on it, since it all came from him in the first place.
That's very interesting. You know that actually, I don't know if you know this, but when I first started working in comics, I worked with Jay Lee. And Jay loved that font, and he had a digital letterer do a version of the font that you did from Moonshadow. Is based on your font. For House Shocker, it's based on the font that you did in Moonshadow.
Oh, I didn't know.
So it sprouted another imitation that became its own thing as well.
That's all right. Wow.
So Comic Craft, I think it's the House Shock font, and it's based on your.
How cool. Nice.
So I know that when you were working on Jack Be Quick, you would do. Now, for those of you that haven't seen it, Jack Be Quick is a series written by Alan Moore. A satirical series that's just great. That you illustrated by yourself, colored as well.
Colored letter there. Yeah.
So that was like one of your complete works. I know it's been edited as collections in Europe, which is very, very nice. And I remember seeing a line and then in the book that you would letter it first over layouts, and then you would pencil and ink it type.
Yeah.
So I remember that you left a lot of space around the text in each word balloon. That was a stylistic thing that I really like.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure where I got that from, but it always looked better to me to err on the side of more space than not enough. I didn't like it when the letters were running into the edge of the balloon or the panel borders. It looked sloppy to me. So I always put a little extra space.
It's very nice. Yeah. I think it looked really classy. I think very elegant.
Alex Toth always did that. He had big balloons, large lettering, and plenty of extra space. I always thought his pages were so well designed.
Absolutely.
That was my inspiration.
Absolutely. Before we move on to other things, I want to mention, for those of you that don't know it, Kevin has, in addition to lettering, he's done great logos. The best known one probably is the Poet logo for Mignola that I guess they used in the films and everything. Like they just become like a brand name logo. But you have also, you were just talking about the one you did for Punisher, and did you do the one for Moonshadow, the cursive one for Moonshadow? So in very different styles as well. And can you talk a little bit about designing logos, where that came from? Do you still do it? You know, what are the things you like about it?
No, for the most part, I don't do them anymore. I started doing them, again, just for my own work. When I was putting together my own stuff as an amateur, again, I wanted to look professional, and I had some experience. I went to a trade school for a couple of years to learn design for printing, and then got a job at a printer. And part of what I did before I got into comics was I designed logos for local businesses and letterheads and brochures and things like that. So I had some experience doing that before I started working in comics. So even when I was doing fan stuff for Amazing Heroes and Comics Journal, I did some logos for Gary Groth for Fantagraphics. I kept trying to redesign the Comics Journal logo. I thought it was poorly designed. Yeah. And I did some covers for them, and every time I'd start a cover, I go, well, first thing we got to do is fix that logo. But I remember Gary, if anybody knows Gary Groth, will appreciate the fact that Gary rejected every design I did because he said, no, that looks too friendly.
Really?
So the image Gary apparently wanted to project was not friendly.
Oh.
So make of that what you will. But I did some logo and cover designs for them for some of their books, like the Drew Friedman book, Rick Geary collection, a few things like that. I designed the title and designed the covers for those when I was just about to get my first work at Marvel. So I had some experience with doing those then.
How did the Hellboy one in particular come about?
Yeah, and I should explain. They've given me credit as the designer of the Hellboy logo, and it's not really true, because Mike did a sketch that had pretty much all the elements in there. It was just a rough drawing, and so basically I think of myself as the inker of the Hellboy logo, not the designer, because I did the finished artwork for him, and we went back and forth a little bit on some of the details, but then that was really my only contribution. And I've said to him many times, I think you were overly generous giving me that much credit for the logo. He said, I know, but it's easier to just say designed by Kevin Nowlan than to go into all these details of first I did this and then he did that. So the shorthand version is I designed it, but that's a bit of an exaggeration.
So do you sometimes see things right now that you, just like you used to do with the Comics Journal, and say, and think to yourself, I could really redesign that logo?
Yes, yeah.
But you don't tell me.
No, well, no. No. But it sort of starts like, you could have a really nice cover illustration on a comic or a magazine or something, but if the logo was bad, that's the first thing you see, and you can never really, I don't know, I get hung up on that stuff because it's not that difficult to do a better design. So,
It is difficult.
well, I don't know.
Maybe for you.
It's distracting though to see something poorly designed.
That's true.
Otherwise good cover.
So I want to talk a little bit about penciling, because I guess you still do everything by hand. You don't draw in the computer,
Right.
Or pencil the computer or anything like that. And I feel that you were inked for 5 minutes, and then you've been inking yourself since.
Yeah, I did. It was a quickie Dr. Strange story I did recently where other people inked me in. It didn't turn out well. It was not, you can tell I was so used to inking my own stuff that I didn't know how to communicate through the pencils for the next guy to take over. It was a real challenge. So,
Was it because of the timeline?
yeah, it was, almost all of those were done much too quickly because of deadlines.
So because you normally ink your work, do you rely on the fact that you're going to be finishing the drawings and don't do very tight pencils?
They're reasonably tight, and it's almost random which things will be carefully rendered and which will be loosely rendered, but they're fairly tight. I like to sort of test the piece in pencil form before I pick up an ink pen, because that's it's nice to leave something to finish in the inking stage, just so that it keeps it interesting, keeps it fresh, and you don't want to just be tracing lines that you've already drawn. You know, then it feels like you're drawing it twice.
Can you run us through your process of from script to like inks? Like, do you break things down into small thumbnails first, or you know?
Yeah, as a penciler, I'm a big believer in thumbnails. Even these convention sketches we're doing, I found that they're so much easier to do because it's usually 9 by 12. It's not huge, but it's a good size figure. And if I work out a little thumbnail, you know, 1.5 inches tall, before I start, everything goes together so much better. Nothing worse than working on a commission. There's a time constraint. People are standing there waiting. My wife is looking at her watch. It's playing, and you realize, oh, I laid this out poorly. His head should be 1 inch further to the, and it's too late. You're committed once you get to that stage. But if you can see a little thumbnail, even a very crude, blocked-in thumbnail of a figure, it's also better getting that gesture, you know, twisting the figure and stuff that always seems to make a con sketch work so much better. It always looks better if you start out with the thumbnail first. So yeah, I will, for almost anything, I'll start out tiny thumbnail sketch, usually in something about print size, and then the final artwork. And that's probably more stages than I need. And you know, some of those early stages can be fairly crude, fairly rough. You know, again, just the gesture, just the, you know, figuring out how to break up the page, how much space will we need for this? Does the movement read? If it's a story page, you know, does my eye go from panel 1 to 2 to 3? You know, all of those things are so much easier if you just start out with a small thumbnail. I know some artists would just start out. I think Jack Kirby would just start out.
Oh yeah.
Full finished drawing.
I think that in the Silver Age, like a lot of people were like Gene Colan was like Jack Kirby, they would start like draw the first panel, second panel, third panel, fourth panel, like they're writing a letter.
It's more power to them. I think Mike Bolden may work that way as well, and I wish I could do that. I really wish I could do that. For one thing, they can work a lot faster, but I've never been able to work that way.
But and I think that precision shows in your work. Everything is really balanced on each page in a way that those people were amazing, but there was a lot more open space having to do with composition and so forth.
Right.
So I want to jump into inking, and you know, you're considered by many people, including myself, to be the preeminent inker in the industry. I absolutely love everything you touch in inks, no matter who's drawing it. But one of the things that I always really liked about your work is that you have inked a lot of the people that you really admired. And sometimes keeping it very faithful, sometimes adding details and shadows. And we're talking a little bit about like your work with Gil Kane, and without repeating what we were saying, I would really love for you to tell us about what prompts you to keep the drawing that you ink more faithful to what the penciler drew, or when do you see that an opportunity to put more detail and shadows? Is it something that the artist or the editor tells you? Is it something that you sort of guess? How does that work out?
Well, yeah, unfortunately I developed a reputation for a while there as an inker who would kind of take over the pencils. And that became a real problem. Just I never got any real complaints from anybody. In fact, I got a lot of editors who wanted exactly that. They were playing games like, we don't want to give him too much. We don't want the pencils to be too finished. We want to give him just enough so that he comes in and adds the shadows and all of this stuff. It all got started because I never planned on being an inker. I always planned on just penciling and inking, doing all the artwork myself. But then at Marvel, they gave me a job or two and had me ink a couple of other people, and I enjoyed it. But then I'd be working over someone where stylistically we were very different artists. And for instance, a face. I remember one guy, I won't mention any names, I remember one guy penciled a face with these elaborate shadows, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out the light source or why is this shadow here? And it was very busy, and I was just lost. So I tried to kind of simplify it or get a handle on it as I was inking. And by the time I was finished, because there was a lot of, try this, try that. By the time I was finished, I really had overwhelmed that face. It looked more like my style than his. That was never my intention. I was just struggling with the work because we were kind of a mismatched pair. But then, like I said, some of these editors, they like that. That's one that they wanted from me. These days, I try really hard if I'm going to ink someone else, and I don't do a lot of that. Inking over other people now, but for instance, I'm doing this Batman series that is penciled by Brian Hitch, and I feel like we're right on the same page. Stylistically, I understand almost everything he's doing makes sense to me. We're not pulling in two different directions, so I'm trying to contribute as much as I can, but I'm not turning it into something that Brian wouldn't recognize. Because it's not fair to have, a guy who works to pencil this story and then he gets something back that's just unrecognizable. The irony is, we were talking earlier, a couple of pencilers wanted me to ink their pencils, and they wanted me to overwhelm their work. And I inked them as faithfully as I could because I loved their pencils and I understood what they were doing, and both of them have I'll say the names, it's Chris Sprouse and Mike Mignola. Both of them have a wonderful economy of line. There's not a lot of extra rendering, everything makes sense to me, and I ink both of them very faithfully, I thought. But both of them later said, that was so disappointing. I thought you were going to go through the shadow and this and that. And I said, well, your work is, you gave me perfect work. There was nothing to fix. I don't know what you want me to do. So that just seemed like an absurd situation when they were complaining because I was too faithful to their pencils. So.
Right at the top of your head, can you tell us like an artist that when you first inked them, you were super happy to be able to do it?
Oh, definitely Gil Kane. Gil, and maybe to a lesser degree John Buscema, they were like the perfect guys to ink because they defined old school penciling as far as I'm concerned. They were focused on structure, especially Gil. His structure was everything to him. And you see the pencils, you can see how he's building that figure, like from the bones out, and it's just solid as a rock. I always loved the way he would have a hero preparing for a battle or something like that, and his feet were planted so solidly on the ground. He had weight to it. Kirby, I never got to eat Kirby, but I love the fact that Kirby could draw these figures with such weight that you really feel the gravity pulling them down. But Gil and John Buscema, I did a project. I did several projects with Gil, and
The one with both?
And one with both. The one that Gil started, and then John Buscema finished. But they were both open for shadows. You could add shadows to them this way or that, and it would still look like Gil and John. You weren't changing the stuff by adding a shadow. Especially Gil's stuff was so recognizable and so stylish that it was almost impossible to weaken. But then there's so many opportunities to put a little emphasis here, a little texture here, there, a little shadow. You can change the lighting, change the light source a little bit, and really feel like you were contributing without overwhelming what they've done.
By the same, I wanted to ask you just kind of curiosity. I know that you inked Steve Ditko in one story, the very late Steve Ditko, and also Carmine Infantino in one story. And those, you got more layouts and finished pencils, right? And I could still see that who they were. I think that their structure was so idiosyncratic that you cannot confuse them with anybody, even though you put a lot of realism into the pieces. Did you ever hear from them? I don't know. No?
No, and I'm relieved that I never heard. I met Carmine later, and I wasn't going to bring that up because I was afraid what he might say. Yeah, they were, as you said, they were more layouts than anything. And again, that's sort of the old school approach. They were less finished, even though than John Buscema or Gil Kane's layouts or pencils. And I loved Ditko. I'm a huge Ditko fan, but it was a story that took place on the Titanic, and it was disappointing because I remember seeing a piece that he had done years before at Spider-Man, where he starts a story by getting his reference and all of that, and the movie Titanic was out when we were working on this story, and geez, they don't even have the smokestacks on the ship ride. It's the number. Either not enough or too many, I don't remember, but the number of, it just didn't look like the Titanic. There were a lot of issues like that I probably could have just inked it the way it was penciled or the way it was laid out, but so many things bugged me. The period clothing was from the 60s instead of the teens. And, it was a problem all the way through. And again, that was Mike Harmon, who kind of liked to see me contribute more instead of less. So I knew it would be better erring on the side of making some adjustments. But that one got completely out of hand. And I think a lot of it was unrecognizable as Ditko's work, which was never my intention, but I was struggling with every page. But,
well, I want to talk a little bit about coloring and painting, but I do want to talk briefly about Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, who's here and got a very nice award of recognition yesterday. And if you're not familiar with Jose Luis, he's one of the masters of the medium. And you and he have had a really great partnership. You have worked on many projects together. And he's almost like one of the great people from the old school of comics, like you were talking about, Gil Kane, John Buscema. I see him as coming from that tradition.
yes.
But he's with us and he's well.
He is, nice. And draws as well as ever, which is saying a lot. You know, we were talking about how most artists have a career arc. You know, they start out a little shaky, haven't figured out things, and this stuff as amateur. They learn, they get better, and then there's a little downward. Reach a certain age and start to lose a step or two. Not Jose. I think recently, and his work is as beautiful as ever. He's absolutely a master of the craft, like you said.
Well, I want to ask you a question that maybe there's no answer, but since you have worked so closely with him, because I think what an inker does when an inker is as serious as you are, is you really have to study the work as you are adding to it in a way that even looking at it for a long time, you just don't get to that level of knowledge of the work. And what do you think is the one thing about Jose Luis that makes his work special that people may not see because they haven't looked at it carefully enough?
Oh, that's a challenge. I don't know. Yeah, that's tough because he does so much so well. Fred Chamberlain last night, when he was introducing Jose, had a great line about the humanity that Jose puts into the figure. Maybe Superman, stopping a bad guy or something like that. But you feel the humanity in this guy, the position of the figure, the expression on the face. It's there as a person. It doesn't look like a drawing on paper. You feel the emotion, you feel the movement. It's tough because he does so many things. He does everything so well. One thing I don't think he gets credit for is incredible research that he does. I'm from Kansas, and central Kansas, and years ago I was too busy to ink a story that Jose had penciled, but I saw copies of the pencils And it killed me that I didn't have time in my schedule to ink it, because I saw he was basically drawing these central Kansas scenes. It was a retelling of Superman origin, where the rocket falls to Earth, etc. But he had a road sign that said, Hayes, Kansas, X number of miles.